Hi everyone and welcome to the Broken Meeple Top 1000 Games. This is where I go through my favourite 1000 games of all time. Yeah, I wish. 1000? Seriously? No, not gonna happen, okay? 100 games already took it out of me this month. I don't need to do another 900 in order to get it all done. Nah. The top 100 is now done and dusted for another year. Thank you so much for watching it and chiming in and giving me your opinions on all the games and that. Really appreciate it. The views have just been so much better than last year and I hope it continues that upward trend. This is the Aftermath episode. This is what I put together to basically go over two things. One, which games fell off the list last year and why. And two, just to quickly run through the rest of the games that I put into the sample list when I was doing the actual initial sort. They're all games that I still like and love. You know, I will happily play all, what have we got here, 162 games were put into the sample. So, you know, I basically took what was in my collection at the time and went with it. So, you know, they're all games I like, it's just there's only room for 100 games and the tastes are going to chop and change and there's going to be reasons why. That's what this episode is for. So, to, you know, get on with the idea, let's talk about first the games that fell off. And I'm going to go in order from the ones that were at the bottom of last year's list and continue up until we get to the highest one that fell off. So first off, and I'm only going to go brief descriptions here. This isn't going to be a full-on review of every single game because we'll be here all night. You know, first up is Tak. Tak over, where have I got that? Over there. Good abstract game, good two-player abstract game. You know, it was 100 last time. It's now dropped off. You know, I still really enjoy it. It's a cool two-player abstract, but most people haven't heard of it. Not to mention, it's a little bit more, it's kind of more brain-burny than others. It's not one that I can just say to people, oh yeah, you'll pick it up easily. Nah, it takes a few tries to get the hang of it, but, you know, it's still an enjoyable game. It's just fallen by the wayside. Not Alone, I've got somewhere on my shelf. I can't see it now. Not Alone is a cool sort of all versus one game. You know, astronauts trying to survive against an alien menace, and it's all about getting in your opponent's head and bluffing and getting, you know, going to locations in order to survive the timer. But the alien menace is trying to devour you as they speak. It's a cool all versus one. Still decent, just can't make the list. Targi, I've got it over there, two-player game, very good two-player worker placement game. Just doesn't see a lot of play at the moment though, because unfortunately two players, again, it's hard for me to get them to the table. It's not a short game by any means. I've got to, you know, relearn the rules again to it and teach it. And as I say, those sort of things do fall off the list a bit easier than others. This one, Trieste, was 95. Trieste is, you know, you can't see it there, but it's a game that can only be played with 3 players. Only 3. You have to have 3. And I love it for that gimmick. It's a cool card game where, you know, you've got a city watch, a thief, and a merchant. Each one with their own objective to win. Each one with their own deck of cards. But one plays off each other. So, you know, a city watch is trying to catch the thief, who's trying to steal from the merchant, who's trying to benefit from the city watch. You know, and it all goes around in this big triangle, you know, of, you know, card play and, you know, almost diplomacy like. You know, do I really catch the thief all the time, but then the merchant's going to get too powerful? You know, you've got to let them get away with a little bit of murder now and again. You know, it's quite a cool system. Legendary Encounters Legendary Encounters Firefly was 93. You know, I like the Legendary Encounter games. The Firefly is probably the weakest one for me. I love the theme, I love the IP, but the artwork is horrendously bad, and you're kind of stuck with just the content of that one box. There's no way to expand it. You know, it gets a little samey after a while, so yeah, that one just fell by the wayside. 91 before was Pandemic Iberia. This is my favourite of the Pandemic games, not including legacy titles. And as I say, I'm starting to wane a little bit on Pandemic. It's still great. It's still a brilliant co-op, and if you're new to games, you should go and check it out. But I only really want to play Pandemic if it's a legacy game or if it's Iberia, because I like the new rules that Iberia brings in. It looks nicer, and the variants are cool as well. So it's just not one that I'd pull out that often. Potion Explosion was 90. Potion Explosion is Candy Crush the board game. You know, you drop little marbles in this dispenser, they come out and you're trying to create little explosion combos and create potions. It's nice. Does suffer from a little bit of AP from some players, so I'm a little wary about playing it with like completely new people. But if you've played Candy Crush, you already kind of know how to play this game, and it's a solid hit. I really like it. Carcassonne was 89. Yeah, Carcassonne's just dropping a bit. I want to play Carcassonne with expansions, and most people don't have the expansions or don't want to play with the expansions. And so it's like I kind of get a bit bored with the base set. Plus, it's one of those games that really doesn't want too many players. I mean, you have so many players there, the downtime just takes too long, especially if people won't enforce the house rule that you draw a tile at the end of your turn. If you don't use that house rule, then I don't want to sit and play the game. Lords of Waterdeep 88 has fallen off. I still really like Lords of Waterdeep. Preferably with the expansion. It must have the expansion. I don't know, it's not seen play for a while. There's a lot of great worker placement games. I could do a top 20 worker placement games easily, probably a top 50 at this rate. And, I will do top 10 worker placement at some point in the future. But it's a solid worker placement game, good gateway level. I love the expansion from bringing in more actions, more cards, corruption that you've got to juggle around with. It's a solid game all round. I don't know, I've just never had time to bring it to the table as much. 85 was Forbidden Desert. Still love pulling it out whenever. Where's that one sitting? Where's Forbidden Desert? That is a good question. Where are you, Forbidden Desert? You'll probably spot it before I can. Oh, there it is down there. Yep, I usually pull this one out as a gateway title to teach new players. I don't even normally sit in the game half the time. I'll just teach it. It's decent. I'm kind of more interested to see what Forbidden Sky brings to the table, in case maybe that overlaps Forbidden Desert, but I still really like it. I prefer it to Island in terms of enjoyment, but all the Forbidden series so far have been top-notch. Alien Frontiers 84. Now, Alien Frontiers I still like more than Kingsburg, but the problem with Alien Frontiers is that I like to play it with the factions, but that adds some more complexity to the game. And the game's not the simplest game by any means, it's certainly not the shortest. So it's not one that can easily get to the table with new players, and most people kind of ho-hum on the dice thing. They like it or they don't. It seems that I'm the one that champions it more than others, so it doesn't get as many plays. 83 was Arkham Horror. It's in the vault. Just haven't really been able to play it for ages, and therefore it can't really make the top 100. Eldritch Horror has kind of supplanted it for me, so with the Arkham Horror LCG card game. So this one doesn't get play much. As for the new edition that they're bringing out, I'm a little bit skeptical about that one. It looks really different to what the old one was, and I fear it's just going to get... I don't know, I'm going to try it. I'm interested to find out more about it, but I'm holding my skepticism level high and my hype low for that one, because I'm curious about what on earth they've changed with it. 82, Camisado Max. I still really like Camisado. It's right behind my chair. It's a great two-player abstract game, and it's the epitome of that coolness of, I gave you the move you needed to beat me. I need to move my tower to your end, you need to move your tower to my end. Whichever tower I move, the color square it's on is the color tower the opponent moves. It is tense as old gallant, and I really like it. Just doesn't hit the table as much. Two players, I still enjoy these two-player abstracts, but if they don't hit the table as often, that can hurt them a little bit. 80, Escape the Aliens Now to Space. Again, not a huge amount of plays, but the problem with Escape from Aliens is that it doesn't work as well with less players, and it's hard to get a giant group together who want to play a hidden movement game. But it is a solid amount of fun if you get the right map and the right number of players. That hidden movement aspect as you're trying to escape the aliens or munch on humans, whatever you like. I think what has put people off it, and I admit it puts me off it a little bit as well, is the fact that you can get to a landing pod and by pure fluke it's out of order, so that you can't escape. That has blown off a few people, and I have to admit it's a bit too swingy to have that happen to you. I wish it's a case of, look, if you get away, well done, you outwitted the aliens. 77, Chaos in the Old World. Yes, I really like this area control game. It does require the maximum players though to really work. It's quite complex, it's got quite a lot of rules to remember, and so it hasn't hit the table as much for that in favour of other simpler area control games. Still really enjoy it. The theme, sings to me. I love the asymmetrical nature of all the races and the Skaven expansion. Occasionally it does get a play or two, but again, it's really dependent on having a high player count. 76, Bang the Dice game, which is up there. I think I've just played it to death. I really do. I do love the game. It's a great dice game. When a friend of mine keeps bringing it to the club and we play it as a filler before we start the night, I think it's just worn off the top 100 mainly because I've played it to death. I've got a lot of plays of it, and eventually it is going to start getting repetitive. 75, Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. It's a solid Euro game, one that sadly is out of print and will probably never come back into print, but it's a cool Euro where you're building up Cleopatra's Pyramid, you're building up all the different statues and elements of it. You just collect cards and play cards in sets in order to do it, but how you get them from this market is really cool, where some are face up and face down, and I love the fact that you get corruption, and at the end of the game, whoever has the most is fed to the crocodile and loses outright. It's a cool sort of like hidden resource that you've got to balance with the other players, and I love it. I wish it was in more games. With this one, again, player count. With more than 3, it can overstay its welcome a bit, so I'm kind of restricted as to how many players I want to play it with. And getting it out of that box is a bit of a pain with that quarry thing. It's like a really fiddly case in that. Maybe if I can find a better way to store it, you know, it'll be more interesting to set up and take down. But I still really enjoy this one. I wish it came back in the print, with like a new glossy version on Kickstarter. 73, Quadropolis. Quadropolis, still a good gateway game about city building. You collect the tiles from this construction site in the center using architects. The number corresponds to how far up this grid that you move and which tile you collect. So you got to be careful not to paint yourself in a corner with where you can place it on your player board and which architects are already on the board. Because you've also got a little pawn piece that moves around and you can't place an architect so it points at that piece. You got to be careful not to get too restricted with where you can place things. It favors long-term planning, but you constantly start off thinking, no, this is easy, I can do this. And then as you get through the game, your choices get more limited and you start going, oh, I wish I never built there. Great. I wish I could play it in expert mode more. Most people I play it with haven't played it before, and so we end up just doing classic. But solid game all round, still really enjoy it. It's just, like I say, there's 100 games. How many we got? Not many more. 68, One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Again, played it to death. However, it's also because there's a couple of games that have just killed it. You know, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong was already my favorite social deduction game of all time. That just outright killed it. But also, Werewords. Werewords is destroying One Night Ultimate Werewolf for me. If I want to play a werewolf style game, I want to play Werewords. And did I put Werewords on the list, or it's on the ones that it didn't make the top 100, but I still really like Werewords. But now I don't like One Night Ultimate Werewolf as much, so that has taken quite a significant drop. Terra Mystica 66, you got Gaia Project. Why do you need Terra Mystica now? Still enjoy Terra Mystica, it just got a little bit samey with what strategies you used in that. And, you know, it was quite a complex game, it's very dry, so dry games have a harder time sort of keeping me engaged. But also, I think, like I say, I've got Gaia Project now, it's on the shelf, and Gaia Project just beats out Terra Mystica now. Ethnos was 65, it's still there. I feel it needs an expansion, you know, to bring in more races. It really could just use a bit of a pep up with that. And again, it's a very entertaining gateway game of area control. You are playing these races and sets, and you're either playing them to put markers on the board to control territories, or you're just playing lots of a particular race to trigger cool abilities and get points that way. It's solid all round as a gateway game, very quick, very little downtime, looks there, absolute horrible artwork and everything, but you know, that's something I just have to accept as a flaw. It's a cool game, just like I say, 100 games to play. Legendary Encounters Predator was 60, now it's fallen down. Don't get as many time to play every single Legendary Encounters game. I just kind of prefer Alien by a long margin. However, I still prefer Predator to Firefly, you'll find out in a minute. And yeah, like I say, Predator Encounters is still pretty decent. I don't often get to be able to tell people to play the PvP version though, which I have to admit is better than I thought it would be. And the co-op mode, as good as it is, isn't as good as the Alien version. I think the Alien version trumps it a little bit, and the artwork was getting steadily worse and worse as you went through the Encounter series. Still really enjoy it though, it's just Alien's my theme over Predator. The next one is a false one, yeah. Remember the mistake I made in one list where Citadels, I thought it dropped off the list and come back on? Now, it's got Citadels bracket 2016 edition, that's why I didn't pick it up on my Excel spreadsheet. So 3 more, Isle of Skye was 50, now it's dropped off. It started to get a little bit samey. Every time it gets suggested, I'm kind of like, I do enjoy it, but can we play one of these games instead? So as soon as you get into that sort of area, it's like, okay, still like it, you know, it gets like a 7 rating, but it's dropping off the top 100 as soon as I start having that mentality when it gets suggested. The expansion came out and just completely destroyed any indication of me wanting to get the expansion. I'm sorry, the game was good as a streamlined Euro game. Do not try and overcomplicate everything you do, Alex. It's not worth it. 48, Hive Mind. Still a cool party game, down on my shelf over there. And this is a great party game which is the opposite of categories. Rather than writing down a word that no one else has written, you now want to write down words that somebody else has written, and as many people have written. You want to think like the other players. You get some cool questions, you can make up your own, it's a barrel of laughs. It kind of overstays its welcome a bit though when you have too many players and you don't enforce some house rules. That's a bit of a flaw with it, and it can fall flat with the wrong group. But like I say, when it does work, it's a solid, quick party game. And then finally, the biggest drop. Yes, this one. Somebody has asked about, where's this on your list? It was there last year. What's happened? Forbidden Stars, 46. And now off the top 100. It's long. It's complex. There's a lot of rules to remember. I can barely remember half of them now, to teach it. It's not been played in a while, and the fact that it'll never get expanded is one of those things where as soon as you know in your mind your game will never be expanded, and it really should be, it can be a bit of a downer to play the game. It's like, oh yes, I want, because I don't like playing Marines. Marines, it's always Marines this, Marines that. Chaos is okay, but I find myself playing Orcs or Eldar more because they're just more interesting races. And I was really hoping for an expansion to come out and say, right, here's your Necrons, here's your Tyranids, here's your Tau. And I would love that, but to know it's not going to get expanded has made it drop off the top 100. It's not getting played anywhere near as much as before. It's a long, complex game, so it's a select group I can play it with. Still on my shelf though, still over there. So, it's still a good game. So that's the ones that dropped off. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to go through 101 to 162. I'll give a brief description if I haven't already of what the game is, but I'm not going to go into details of why it doesn't make the top 100 because I'll be here all day. So if you recognise these games, good on you, because I'm not putting on a million pictures for this. 101, Deus. Deus, great Euro game, very dry, but you're playing cards in cool sets in order to trigger card abilities that get better and better and better as you add to the respective column. Dry as a bone, very underrated though, and a solid one, particularly with the expansion that adds in more card sets. 102, Quadropolis I mentioned, 103, Potion Explosion, 104, Alien Frontiers, 105, Viral. Viral is a new Dice Tower Essentials game where you're viruses in a human body trying to area control the various organs. Has a little bit of simple card play, a bit of variability, it's cutesy, nice artwork, pretty simple game, pretty vicious, and like I say, it's only missed the top 100 by a few places. It's a very solid entry-level area control game. 106, Gaia Project, already mentioned. 107, Werewords. The 20 questions meets the Werewords universe. Really enjoy this one. Super fast. Everybody knows how to play 20 questions. So the fact that you've got traitors and that is not difficult to explain. The app makes it easy to generate a huge bank of words or get them from the community. And now the deluxe set is out, means I can get more rolls. So maybe this will hit the top 100 next year. You don't know. 108, Harvest Dice, a cool little dice roller, a roll and write game where you're drafting dice from a middle in order to draw vegetables on your garden patch. You're restricted as to where you can draw them. The dice you leave behind ups the value of that particular vegetable so that they're worth more points at the end. You've got a little cute little piggy that you can feed unwanted dice to. It's just a very nice, simple filler roll and write game. 2, 3 or 4 players. It's nice and cute. 109, Chaos in the Old World as mentioned. 110, Lords of Waterdeep. You can see already that a lot of the games that have dropped off the list didn't drop off miles below the 100 mark, so they're still great games. 111, Ethnos. 112, Arkham Horror. 113, Forbidden Stars. See, it's still there pretty close. 114, Not Alone. 115, Kanagawa. This little game right here by Yellow. It's a cutesy game about building like a painting strip, a Japanese painting strip, and you're trying to get sets of like trees or animals or people, get the weather in line, and build up your little studio as well so that you can use more paint. Very cute little filler. Wish maybe there was an expansion to just add more to it, but yeah, it's a cute little game. I like to bring it out every now and again. 116, Pandemic Iberia. 117, Legendary Encounters Predator. 118, Hive Mind. 119, Isle of Skye. See, like I said, they're all close. Most of these games that fell off fell in the 20 games below it. 120 Patchwork, the original two-player polyomino game that Uwe Rosenberg started and has now spawned a ton of different versions, including some from him. I still enjoy it. It's a great two-player, polyomino game. I just prefer Barren Park, hence, Barren Park would make the list easily, and this one probably wouldn't. 121 Santa Maria. Where's that one gone? Where's Santa Maria? Oh, yeah, where is Santa Maria? Hang on. Show yourself, Santa. Oh, there it is. Very dry Euro game, but has some interesting little mechanics. I'm more interested in what the expansion is going to bring, because I think it might fix a few of the things that stop it being like a really great game. It's still a cool game. You're drafting dice and doing all these cool ability combos with the grid, rows and columns. And like I say, I really enjoy it. I just wish it wasn't so super dry. That is my main beef with it. 122, Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. 123, Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. 124, Bang the Dice Game. 125, Firenze. Firenze is right there. It's an unheard of game for most. It uses that small world style of card selection where you go, or Century Spice Road if you want to know that one, where you skip a card and you have to put a coloured block on each one as you pass. The cards give you different abilities and powers, but what you're mainly doing is building little tower blocks of different colours. And you have to be careful, because if you can't add to your tower as you're building it, it collapses and so it goes to waste. So you're trying to push your luck a little bit as to how high you can build this tower before you cash it in for victory points. There's different thresholds and contracts to adhere to. It's a nice simple game, looks the piece, nice coloured wooden blocks. It's a solid Euro and most people have not even heard of it. 126 Imhotep. Yeah, this very dry one here, but oh my god, is it super vicious and super fast. You've got a lot of variability in the places that you're sending the building blocks to. You've got the different boats that change up each round. You've got the cards that change up each game. I hear the expansion is pretty solid for it, just adds more of the cool stuff, so I might grab that to Essen if it's going to be released there. But yeah, you're basically putting building blocks on boats, sending them out to these different monuments of Egypt, and each one has a different rule as to how they're placed and score points. But it is super vicious. You can block people, you can send ships with their stones on to the wrong place. It is nasty and vicious. But if you're into that, go check it out. 127, Azul. I do like Azul. It's on my shelf, it's right down here, and the amount of times I've taught this game at charity events or HandyCon or anything like that is beyond counting. It is such a popular game whenever we do these events, and I still enjoy it. I want to play it more with 2 and 3 though. With 4 I find it's too nice and flexible. I like the fact that when you have 2 and 3 there's more scope to being really nasty to the other players and making them pick up and drop lots of tiles. With 4 players you don't quite get as much opportunity as that. And it can overstay its welcome downtime wise. But yeah, like I say, Azul, still solid, deserved the Spiel des Jahres award, I'm glad it won it over The Mind. But, so it's a really cool abstract game. I wish maybe some of the tiles looked a bit better. I mean, plain red and plain blue. I know you can buy upgrades for them, but seriously, when you put it in the box, stop trying to screw me over for all my cash. Still really cool though, 127 Azul. 128, Cockroach Poker Royale, or Kakalak Poker Royale. A friend of mine who's running Dice Portsmouth soon, hates this game. He calls it just pure, luck, 50-50 choice. It probably is half that, but you gotta just get into it. It's a line bluffing game. You just take a card with a vermin picture on it, and you pass it to someone and go, this is a spider. And then they have a choice. Do they believe you? Do they think you're a liar? Or do they look at it and then pass it to someone else and say, either this is a spider or completely something else, like this is a stink bug, this is a bat. And you just keep going until somebody gets 4 of the same type. Very simple filler game, but if you like bluffing games like I do, this is hilarious fun because you just embellish everything you say. You try everything in your power to sway the mind of the person that you're giving it to. Great amount of fun, just a silly little filler. 129 Tack, 130 Forbidden Desert, 131 Jaipur. If you've not heard of this one and you're into games, then oh dear. But up there, a little 2-player card game where you're trading, different goods, silk and diamonds and that, like Indian style trading. And the idea is that you want to cash in sets for more points. You've got camels that you get hold of that allow you to trade, and it's basically a central market. So the 2 of you are trading with this market, but you want to be careful with how much you trade in case you give your opponent something they want. Great back and forth, very tight scores. It's a solid 2-player hit. 132 Airlines Europe. This one right here. This is basically Ticket to Ride meets stock shares and certificates. I'm not a big fan of stock games, I must admit, but Airlines Europe is just simple enough to not make it so dreary. You know, the connections of airplanes on the map is very Ticket to Ride-esque, everybody knows how that works, and the shares is kind of, it's simple. It's not difficult to explain. It's enough fun to be a shortish game. And I mean, how long is it supposed to be? Like an hour and a half tops. Caters for 5 players quite nicely, which is another advantage to it. Like I say, just not enough to make the list. I'm running out of breath. 133 Tigris and Euphrates, a solid Reiner Knizia hit. It's a deep strategy game, putting tiles on the board and trying to cause wars and revolts. And the different color tiles have different restrictions and abilities to play them, and you're trying to get the lowest of a particular color as your score, so you want to have a balance of everything. Solid strategy game, one I definitely recommend, and probably one of the very few games I like by Knizia. 134 Firefly Legendary Encounters, 135 Targi, 136 Concept, the party game where you're putting exclamation marks and question marks on this board full of pictures in order to try and explain a clue. It's basically explain a clue without talking, but you're putting the cubes and exclamation marks on pictures to try and illustrate particular concepts. That is what the game is. It's a solid little party one. Great little puzzle solver. 137 Unusual Suspects. Yeah, one of the most controversial games in my collection. I don't know where it is right now, but is it down there? I can't see it. But Unusual Suspects, it's Guess Who Controversial Edition. You're cooperatively working together, one person knows who the murder suspect is, and you'll flip over a card with a question like, do they cycle to work? And everybody else has to come up with the reasons why these people aren't the murderer, based solely on a mugshot. So it is the most judgmental game you'll ever play. If you're not into, well, I don't think anybody's into being judgmental, but, if that's going to offend you in some way, then do not play it. But if you're just going to let bygones be bygones and just go nuts, it is hilarious. 138 Carcassonne, 139 Biblios, the very nice little quick bidding filler game where you're trying to get, again, point value of cards, but the first half of the game is drawing from a deck and deciding what you want, what your opponents are going to get, and what you're going to put up for auction. And then the second half of the game is you auction those other cards and you're trying to get the most points in particular colours. However, the point value at the end of the game of those colours can chop and change, so it's a very dynamic bidding game. 140 Sylveon. This is one of the Omniverse solo games. You can play it 2-player, but I pretty much play it solo. And this one has you defending the forest from a fire elemental. It's my pick of the Omniverse games. It's a solid one. The first half has you building your deck of animals via this cool column selection thing of like push your luck as to which abilities you can get. It's like customizing your deck before you start the game. And then you've got to actually defend the forest and the fire elemental in one of those kind of plant versus zombie style MOBA games. So this is a solid one. 141 Dragon's Gold. Do you like negotiation? Pure negotiation. This one has you as adventurers trying to slay dragons that have lots of different colored jewels as loot. But once the dragon is slain, whoever is involved with the killing has to then negotiate to divide up the loot. You have no past, you can't make past commitments or future promises or anything. You have 1 minute to negotiate how you're going to split those gems. It can lead to some laughs and some very vicious people when you're trying to deny everyone that. But how cutthroat can people be with their deal making? This is the game you want to play. 142 La Granja. La Granja is over there. I do like it. It's a solid game. I love the multi-use cards in it and I love the farm building. The thing that keeps it off the list though is that I'm not a big fan of that market in the middle. It's very Stefan Feld-like. The mechanics of it are kind of weird. They don't make a lot of thematic sense. But I love the rest of the game and that's what keeps me interested. I tend to do more with those segments than the market every time I play it. But of course, it's a bit restrictive when you do that. 143 Decrypto. This is a relatively new game, kind of a blend of Codenames and... Codenames and... What's another game I'm thinking of? Oh, never mind, but it's similar to Codenames. You've got 2 teams. You're trying to decipher the opponent's code based on the clues that they are giving each other in their teams over the respective words. Eventually, you will figure this out, but of course, you're trying to guess their code, they're trying to guess yours, and it's a race against time to see who can figure it out first. It's a solid little party game. 144, One Night Ultimate Werewolf. 145, Poker. Texas Hold'em Poker. I like a game of poker. I wish I could, find a pub league local and just do some more cash poker. Nothing silly. I don't do online poker. I don't do silly amounts of money, but now and again, I just like a bit of poker. 146 Keeper. I used to have this. I don't have it in the collection anymore. I recently got rid of it. It's a solid game, a follow-up to like Keyflower and those style of games. It's from the same designer, same publisher. It has these really cool kind of like paper fold-out boards that you can chop and change every round, and you're building up a village and a farm and animals and stuff, and I find it very cute. What keeps it off the list, and the reason I got rid of it, is because the rulebook is beyond horrendous. In fact, pretty much the rulebook for all games in this series is horrendous. It's like, seriously, they need someone else to do these rulebooks because it puts me off those games so bad. I mentioned Keyflower on the top 100, and one of the reasons it doesn't go up much more is because it's such a bear ache to actually, teach the rules and learn them again. So I can only really play it with certain people. It's a bit of a nightmare. And Keeper, the rulebook's even worse. 147 Lost Cities, a two-player game that I did play with Zara quite a lot actually, and won most of the time. But, it's a solid two-player game. You're holding cards in your hand and you're trying to build up expeditions in the middle. It's a Knizia game, so it's not exactly thematic or anything, but you're trying to build them in numerical order. But of course, you're holding some cards, your opponent's holding some cards, they're building expeditions. Are they rivaling yours? Are they deliberately holding cards so that you can't have them? When do you decide to skip? Because if you don't get a certain value in each expedition, you'll lose points. Very tense back and forth game, really good entertaining fun. 148 Liar's Dice, the classic Liar's Dice from, like Pirates of the Caribbean, that kind of thing. Roll dice, hide them under your cup. People make bids as to 6 5s, 4 6s, 3 3s, and until somebody calls them out and goes, lies, there isn't that. Reveal your cups, see if you're right or not, lose a die if you're not, and basically that's the general game. It's a good solid amount of fun. I just prefer Liar's Dice to Perudo because Perudo can be played with a lot more players, and I just think Liar's Dice is nice with that little collective of 4 players. 149 Manhattan. This is a simple the reprinted edition of an old 1990s Spiel des Jahres winner, where you're building tower blocks. You have cards in your hand, you play a card to say which particular grid you want to build on, and you're trying to build the tallest towers, you're trying to have the most towers, etc. And it's quite a vicious area control game, but dirt simple and dirt quick. 150 Dimension. This is a cool puzzle game where you're building spherical pyramids, with these spherical balls. But the cards each round dictate the restrictions you have and the rules you must follow in order to get the most points. And so it's a frantic, timed puzzle game of I've got to put the orange on there, but I've got to put the green there, and the green mustn't be next to a blue. And it's just a solid amount of fun. Very quick little puzzle game. 151 Micropolis. I reviewed this recently. Go check out that video. It's it's a drafting tile game where you're drafting from a row of tiles to build an ant colony, and you're trying to collect different types of ants. You're trying to have lots of little ant figures, use your soldier ants. It's a very simple tile drafting game. Just like I say, it's only got so much appeal that it's not going to make a top 100 list. 154. Hold on, that's weird. Oh no, 154 Trieste. Sorry, I thought I'd already mentioned it. Yeah, I did earlier in the video. Stupid. 155 Hanabi. I enjoy Hanabi. It deserved its win. It's a decent, co-op game with a twist where you've got the cards facing away from you and you have to give clues to your opponents and build up a firework display. It's kind of got repetitive for me, so that has fallen a bit. 156 The Manhattan Project 2 Minutes to Midnight. I enjoyed this one, but it's a heavier one than, say, Energy Empire. I think Energy Empire is a lot better than it, but Minutes to Midnight still gives me a lot of good choices. It's variable scoring every game, different ways to get points, and yeah, it's a solid hit all round. Just not one that I would say is going to be top 100 material anytime soon, and it's already starting to wane on me, so it might even drop further. 157 Survive Escape from Atlantis, the great gateway, vicious game that makes children cry as you're trying to get your guys off a sinking island onto shore whilst everybody else is controlling sea monsters that are trying to eat you at every turn and collapse all your boats. Great fun. I used to play Escape from Atlantis a lot as a kid. Survive on Miscanthus is a solid hit all round, but boys are vicious. And you must play with the rule that has each person is worth a point, because I hate that hidden rule where they've got hidden scoring. That's just weird and swingy. I don't like it. 158, we're almost there, guys. Timeline. Pick a timeline. Timeline, you're building up a timeline in the middle of the table, you've got cards with dates on the back, and you're trying to think, where in that timeline does the signing of the Magna Carta or whatever, when did that happen? Did it happen before they invented the stethoscope? Did it happen after the 100 Years' War? It's stuff like that. I personally have a favourite as the British history one, because it means I can learn a little bit about British history. It's a blend of challenge and that. But then I also quite like inventions. I think inventions is a really good one, and it surprises you just how early some of these inventions got made. 159 Pentago, 2-player abstract game. Very simple. You got to get 4 in a row. I think it's 4 or 5 in a row. You put a marble on the grid, and then you spin one of the corners, and you just keep going until someone makes a line. It requires a bit of forward thinking, a bit of planning. Simple abstract, but a cool, neat idea. 160 Meeple, or whatever you pronounce it as. It's this little bag right here full of tiles. Very simple abstract game. You're basically just placing tiles with different etched out symbols on them. Each one has a special rule about what it does when you place the tile and where you can place it. And I think you're trying to get, it's been a long time since I've played it. I think you're trying to get multiple symbols in a row. It's another one of those like 4 in a row style things. Or you're trying to get it so that your opponent can't play a tile. That's another thing. And finally, 2 more. 161 Tumbling Dice, the dexterity game where you've got this like sloped board and you're chucking dice down this thing. And depending on where it lands, you multiply the value of the dice and that's your score. It's a straight up fun party dexterity game. I'm not very good at it, but it's great fun to have people just sort of like try and shake their dice and try and aim it, knock other people's dice off. It's a solid hit, need the big one. It goes well at conventions, at charity events, I like to bring it along. It's a solid dexterity game. And finally, 162, Tatsu. This one is waning on me. The whole backgammon thing, I liked it at first, the whole moving the blocks around a grid and dragons, but it is quite luck-based. You are basically rolling dice and just hoping that you get the right numbers. I mean, you might send your red dragon towards an opponent and hope they won't roll the thing to beat you with it, and they just happen to. So that's waned on me a lot, and that had to just drop it to the bottom of the list. Whew! Not much in my throat now, but there you go. 162 games I put into the sample, and that's not to say I've only played 162 games. I've played lots of games, and there are more games that I enjoy other than these 162. But I was very specific that if a game was going to meet my top 100 or have the possibility of meeting my top 100, it had to be one that I was willing to put in the collection. And the collection has been building up. I reached a sort of peak limit, but I have expanded it a little bit more into the other room. And, some games have to come and go as I bring in more ones. So if I'm willing to keep it, it's more likely to hit my top 100. So that's basically how I choose the sample. So I must own about 170 or 175 games. I mean, probably 150, 175, I think, is about the figure of games I need to own. I could go up to 200, and I think 200 would definitely be my upper limit of how many games I need to own. Probably, to be honest, 50 would have probably been enough, but I like games. So, yeah, it's, like I say, all of these games I love. All 162 of them and beyond. So many games I enjoy. Even the ones that fall off the list, I still enjoy them. And as you heard, most of them were in the top 125 games. So there's still ones I really enjoy, but there's only room for 100. And hopefully you enjoyed a lot of those games as well. So that's it. Top 100 of 2018, all done. It's getting a bit dark. Lights are starting to fade. It's time to shut this one down. So until next year, when I do the top 100 games of all time for 2019 edition, I'll say goodbye. But there's still more to come. We've got reviews. We have got top 10 lists are coming back. The podcast is still there. If I haven't put it out already, an FAQ, which I do, I hope that a lot of you watch the FAQ one, because it's going to ask for a lot of feedback from you guys, and I need your feedback. So please watch that video if you haven't already. And maybe there's other ideas in the future. Again, see that video. But there's stuff on the mind, that I want to try out. Time permitting, it's just me that does this. But, there's more on the horizon. So I hope you enjoy watching this channel. Hope, I haven't spooked any of you guys off. And just thank you for the comments. Thank you for the support. It just makes it a lot easier to cope with the work burden of getting it all done. But I still enjoy it. It's still a great hobby to be involved in. Wouldn't have it any other way. Well, maybe a few extra £1 million, something like that. But I digress. So that's it for me for the top 100. See you next time, guys. Take care, and remember, all 162 of these games are still only games. See you soon.